Thank you, Tessa. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining today's GFRA webinar. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mariano Pérez-Filgueira, an expert in virology and immunology with a specialized focus on infectious diseases affecting livestock. Mariano completed his PhD in biological science in 1996 from the University of Buenos Aires. He furthered his expertise through postdoctoral research at the Beadle Center in University of Nebraska and also at the INIA in Madrid, Spain. Currently, Dr. Pérez-Filgueira serves as the coordinator of a research project under INTA's National Animal Health Program, where his work addresses immunopathogenesis and its relevance to infectious agents in livestock production systems. He's also the deputy director of the INTA CONICET Institute of Virology and Technological Innovations and is an independent researcher at CONICET. His leadership extends globally as a member of the executive committee of the Global Food and Mouth Disease Research Alliance and within Argentina as part of the Argentine Society of Virology. Mariano's research spans critical areas in virology and immunology, including pathogenesis, vaccine development, and advanced diagnostic solutions, with a strong focus on FMD. His expertise has guided numerous national and international research collaborations involving partnerships with renowned institutions such as Plum Island Animal Disease Center in the United States, SENASA in Argentina, and ARC Onderstpoort Veterinary Research in South Africa. This effort has been supported by notable funding organizations, including the USDA, the Argentine National Agency for the Promotion of Research, and the International Veterinary Vaccinology Network. Without further ado, Mariano, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Giselle, and thank you, the GFRA, for inviting me to share this presentation. Perhaps some of you already have heard a previous presentation on this topic that we offer during the UFMD meeting in the third day, when the GFRA also organized a forum discussing some aspect of the disease. And this is based on that presentation, adding some more information. And well, I will start with the acknowledgement to the people that helped me a lot, my colleagues in SENASA, Sabrina Gadonovo and Ana Tafarel, that provide a lot of information and discussion on these topics. Diego Viali dos Santos, that I just met, and he's in charge of the FMD program in Panaftosa in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was very generous to also share time with me to discuss the Panaftosa goals and what are the current challenge for them. And last but not least, Michael Baumer from the FLI in Germany, that also shared with me quite a long time discussing the current situation of Germany and how Germany was prepared for FMD. So let's start for the beginning, and that is when and how the FMD was introduced in South America. The record said that it started at the end of the 19th century. It was the Rio de la Plata, Argentina, and Uruguay, the one that were the first experiences outbreaks. It's interesting that it was at the same time as the US, so it was happening in both extremes of a continent. Following these incursions in the Rio de la Plata, FMD spread to Brazil. These are the years where these reports were recorded in the state of Minas Gerais. And from there, it moved to the Andean region, to Bolivia, Peru, Chile in 2020. And much later on, it was introduced to Venezuela, probably related with movements of livestock from Argentina, and those were infected with serotype O FMDV. So how? Well, this coincides with the European immigration and is associated to the import of cattle infected, live infected cattle. The immigrants brought their own livestock, but also there was an increased export-oriented market that used European breeds. So they brought them here, and then they took the products back to Europe, especially leather by that time. So the European breeds enhanced the local herds, and one of the main things at that time, of course, it was a much less developed animal health regulation and also quarantine protocols compared with the modern standards. So these are three elements that were all together, then increasing transatlantic shipping, the demand for specific European cattle breeds, and the absence of comprehensive animal health screening and quarantine procedures. So FMDV quickly became endemic because the virus feels very comfortable in this scenario, and the colonization and the territorial expansion also provide increase the pool of susceptible animals that would receive the virus. Livestock movement between regions also contribute to the spread, the agricultural practice, and this is important especially for serotype O. In contrast, North America, that received more or less at the same time, suffered only sporadic FMDV introductions because there were differences in the system of and the production systems for livestock, in the trade, in animal movement, and also in the health measures. So South America show a higher susceptibility in the livestock and face less effective control measures during the initial establishment of the disease. So from Europe, we received three serotypes, A, O, and C. They found in South America, and as with the seminal works of Nick Knowles and Per Wright, you know that the strains in Europe and in South America are the same, and this is the reason. It is interesting that the serotype C, some publications said that might have evolved from the serotype A in Europe, or even within South America itself, following some evolutionary changes. So the serotype C has a peculiar behavior because it was less prevalent than the other serotypes O and A. However, apparently disappeared in 1994, but reappeared in the Amazon region in 2004. And now you know that the production of serotype C virus for vaccine has been halted in South America and, of course, in the rest of the world. But anyway, this underscores the complex and unpredictable nature of a virus circulation. So the prevention in South America is strongly based on the establishment of Pan American Center for Foot and Mouth Disease in 1951. Before that, there were like individual arrests, but the main point was this. The primary goal of PANAFTOSA is provide technical cooperation to South American countries and eliminate FMD in the final stage. Subsequently, the first national FMD programs were implemented in the 60s and in the 70s. And in the 80s, a more comprehensive regional strategy, including more countries, was put in place, was called the Hemispheric Program for the Eradication of Foot and Mouth Disease, or FEFA. And the FEFA has had three periods so far. The one started in 1988, the one started in 2011, and the one started in 2021. Of course, we will not read all this table, But this is a clear example of a progressive control pathway of the disease based basically on vaccination. So if you want to see this in a different format in maps, you can see that at the start of FEFA in 1988, most of South America had FMD circulating. By 2011, there were large regions that control the disease with or without vaccination. And in 2021, when the last program started, most of the South American territory was FMDB free. So this is a very old slide that I use just to highlight how is an actual response in the field to an outbreak of FMD. These are the description along the time of outbreaks that happened in Argentina between 2000 and 2002. And I will not go into detail with this, but you can see there the bars are the number of outbreaks that accounted for over 2,500. And you can see the different strains that were circulating at that time and what was the response that Argentina decided to put in place. So this is basically the message from here is that if you want to control FMDB with vaccines, you have to have the right vaccines, because sometimes your vaccines are not perfect for what is circulating in the field. And when the virus is circulating in the field, it could arise, it will probably produce some new variants that are more virulent, as the strain A2001, that was really very aggressive in terms of as a virulent strain, and was finally included in the tetravalent vaccines that were employed at that time. So this is also kind of a picture of a progression of last outbreaks. As you can see, a lot of them with the O strain, some of them with A. Here in 2004 is in Brazil is the C strain, but as you can see, the picture turns greener and greener and greener. So this is also a way to see this progression in the last 10 years. As you can see, the progression involves not only areas where the disease was controlled with vaccination, but also areas where vaccination was suspended, and then the territories were declared free without vaccination. And we will focus a little bit on this stage because, as you can see, large regions of Brazil and Bolivia have suspended vaccination starting in 2023, and they expect to declare this area as free without vaccination during this year. So this is the current situation. I won't go further with this table, but at this moment, most of the population in South America, around 80%, is under the status of free with vaccination, and around 16% is free without vaccination. Only 4% of animals are in areas not free of disease. So I just pinpoint some key factors that I understood that were critical for the control of the disease. And I will go through really quick. Mandatory, systematic, and controlled vaccination plans, use of high quality purified vaccines that were actually DIVA compatible, improved diagnostics, epidemiological monitoring, herd immunity, and virus circulation that was critical to know where we were standing, early detection and disease alert systems, public-private associations in charge of implementation of the campaign. That also was a very important part of success. And of course, the serious involvement of the producers and the farmers. These are some numbers of vaccination in 2023 and the testing of virus circulation. I was talking with Diego, and he explained me that these low numbers in Brazil in 2023 were related to the fact that after Brazil suspended vaccination, they decided just to sample farms close to the border with Venezuela. It's a low density region of farms. So these numbers are low because of that, but they increase in the 2024 testings. So this is the current situation. This is a transition between a free with vaccination situation to a suspension of the vaccination campaign. This is actually not an official war FMDB status, but it's interesting to show you the dimension of the territories that are involved in this new situation. So if we think of this process, I just want to highlight that between 2023 and 2025, the proportion of animals free with vaccination and free without vaccination will be reversed. So it will, the free without vaccination will go up to 67%, and the free with vaccination will be around 30% of the population. So while we were discussing these issues in South America, things happened. And the things were involving the European Union. As you can see, there are two status here, suspension and FMD free status here, and a containment zone here. So I will go a little bit on these two topics. In January 2025, Germany declared an outbreak of FMD. It was after 37 years of freedom of the disease. This was a single outbreak located in the outskirts of Berlin, and it affected only buffaloes, domestic buffaloes, that actually 3 of the animals tested positive, but they died. And this was a free-range holdings with very low animal density. So that was emergency. You can see here in the map the position of the outbreak, and this is Berlin. So what was the response? The remaining 11 animals in the herd were killed and disposed, and they did the same with nearby farms and high-risk contact animals. The lineage of a virus was identified. I understand that together with the World Reference Lab in Pérez, and it's an O serotype Middle East, South Asia lineage that was first described in India in 2018. As part of the response, they established protection and surveillance zones. You can see the protection zone is a 3-kilometer radius area, and the other one goes up to 10 kilometers. This protection zone was lifted in February 11th, yes, and the surveillance zone was in place until February 20th. At this point, the WOA granted what they call the containment zone, that is an area in between the protection and the surveillance zones, And this is important. It's important to note that the containment zone can be requested only after what they call 2 incubation periods. That is 14 days each. That means that only after 28 days after the declaration of emergency, you can apply for this containment zone that allows the rest of the country to regain the status of free of the disease, while this is restricted to a much smaller area. So among the other responses of Germany, Germany participates in the European Regional Bank and holds its own particular contract national with in this same bank. 750,000 doses were brought to Germany, but not applied. All the surveillance activities were enhanced, and that involved wildlife reservoirs, surveillance within or outside the restricted zone, movement control, and traceability of the previous movements close to the outbreak area. Before that, there was no active surveillance in Germany. Rather, they perform what they call exclusion testing, that is practiced by the federal states. And this strategy that it has been reviewed in this paper by the first author is Michael, put less emphasis in detecting the clinical signs, but it's more focused on taking samples and send them over the laboratories for the analysis. That also, during this period, the farm is not intervening in any way, so that also is more friendly for the producers. In March 2025, there was another outbreak, now in Hungary. In this case, it was like 50 years from the previous outbreak, and it was also a single outbreak, but affecting cattle. This was farm with a higher density of animals. More than 1,000 animals were tested positive, and as part of this was close to the border of with Slovakia, and you can see here the spot of the outbreak. All these positive animals were killed and disposed, as well as the remaining animals in the herd. The FMDB status was suspended by WOA and involved all the country. All the surveillance and protection zones were established, and it's important to remember that it's too soon to apply for the containment zone yet, so still they need to wait until the 2 incubation periods are over. The serotype of this outbreak was also identified as no, but is from a different lineage than the one isolated in Germany. So they has the surveillance activities, including control of wildlife reservoirs, surveillance within the restricted zone in domestic animals, outside the restricted zone in wildlife animals, and of course, again, the movement control and traceability of the previous movements. So, coming back to South America, Panaftosa identifies these challenges. First, the sanitary status in Venezuela to improve the vaccine coverage that now it's around 6.5 million animals, and the livestock goes between 10 and 50 million, so it's still a little bit low. Provide technical support to the official veterinary services and strengthen private-public associations to assist in the vaccination programs. The other issue is the transition of free with vaccination to free without vaccination. Colombia would suspend the vaccination in southern provinces in the border with Brazil, apparently this year. They provide, of course, technical support to official veterinary service in different countries. And Argentina and Uruguay are carrying out a more gradual transition. So I will talk a little bit about this. As you can see, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay account for over 45% of the global cattle meat exports. You can see the table here. And Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, they hold over 20% of the global cattle meat production. But the strategies in each country are different. Despite of the sanitary policies, each country has its own strategy based on economics, of course. So Brazil suspended vaccination campaign in most of the territory, probably trying to gain access to markets from countries FMDV free without vaccination that restrict the products from countries with vaccination. In the meantime, Uruguay and Argentina continue with the vaccination campaign. That may imply that they may have reduced access to some markets. However, Uruguay over the last years has increased their meat exports to some difficult markets, as Japan, for example, with and without bones, but maintain vaccination. So that means that these two things shouldn't be completely related, the reduced access and the vaccination. So far, Paraguay continues with the FMD vaccination campaigns. So this is also to show you that the WAS recommendations also are changing. Of course, I will go not through this text, but both are recommendation for importation of animals and products from FMDV countries or zones where the vaccination is practiced. So as you can see, in 2015 years ago, the amount of indications and the special situations taken were much less than the ones that are currently in place. So that means that this is also a flexible situation in terms of what is authorized and how it is authorized in the current sanitary scenario worldwide. So just to finish with the challenge in Panaftosa, one of the main ones is the Bambaco, the regional vaccine and antigen banks. A minimum of 3 countries are required to create the regional bank. Ecuador and Paraguay have signed the agreement, while Brazil and Bolivia are expected to join this initiative this year. At the moment, only Argentina has its own bank of vaccines and antigen. So this is something that they are working on, and I expect to create the bank during this year. There was an additional point that I was discussing with Diego, that was the permanence of vaccine manufacturing companies in the region. Of course, they should be in charge of producing the vaccines in the event of a sanitary emergency, but they need to be there. This is a kind of difficult situation because it's a market and business-driven decision. So the public organizations has something to say, but not a direct impact on this, because this is something that the companies themselves decide. So this is something that also may be pending. So just to wrap up this, what are the lessons? Well, the lessons include, first, the regional coordination to enhance the local capabilities. That is a critical point if you want to carry out a program or programs like this in other places. Also, the deep involvement of different stakeholders, that is the official authorities, the sanitary authorities, the government, the farmers, the sanitary system itself with all the veterinarians and private veterinarians, the academic sector, the research, and of course the pharma, the vaccine producers. Also, the creation of this intermediate association, private, public, was very beneficial in terms of supporting vaccination campaigns. That is something that, for example, Panastosa is trying to promote in Venezuela. And of course, the use of good quality and very well-controlled vaccines in the frame of a centrally driven vaccination program. This is, of course, critical. But what are the questions and the challenge remaining? First, the creation of a regional bank, the decrease of risk associated to the virus circulation in the northern areas of South America. Also, to decide or to try to study what is the main risk of emergence for FMD in South America, an exotic or South American strains. This will completely change the scenario in one case or the other, and also will modify the measures put in place in each case. Also, the development of early alert protocols for rapid detection and also rapid response systems. The coordinated and safe transition to free without vaccination status in all of the countries. And as I said just recently, the permanence of a vaccine manufacturing companies in the region. So having said this, I just want to thank you for your attention, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Probably you will get a lot of I don't knows, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariano, for that great presentation. So now Melanie and I will be moderating the question and answer session. So we have one question from Benedicto Villamucama. Thank you for the insightful presentation. You mentioned that about 80% of cattle are free with vaccination and 16% are free without vaccination, with plans to extend freedom without vaccination to more areas. What is the main basis or guideline for making the decision to suspend vaccination in these areas? Why has Venezuela remained without an official FMD-free status despite efforts in the region?
Okay, the decisions are based on risk models. They take into account when the outbreaks happen, how many and where, and that helps the epidemiologist to draw a prediction in terms of how big is the chance that an outbreak would arise. And I understand that all these decisions are based on risk model studies. Regarding Venezuela is now being assisted by Panastosa, but it has been assisted by many countries during the last years, including Argentina. I would say that each country has its particular policies, and of course, not all the countries have the same production matrix. So perhaps livestock production in Venezuela is not that important as in Argentina, for example, and perhaps other industries, I don't know, oil, are more important. So that also modifies the amounts of funding and relevance that the central government may provide to this task. But The idea is to help this country to improve their conditions. So this also will improve the conditions of all the subcontinent.
Thank you, Mariano. And just a follow-up. First of all, thank you for showing us a lot of maps. I think it's great to have that visual perspective. I noticed that the neighboring country of Venezuela, Colombia, still continues to have the FMD free with vaccination. However, in nearing regions in Brazil that borders Venezuela, they are not vaccinating. Isn't that too risky?
Well, actually, it depends also on the density of the population and on how fluid are the borders between the countries. While Brazil considered that that was not a risk, Colombia has a different situation, and actually Colombia provides Venezuela with vaccines, and they also collaborate with Venezuela to control the disease. So I understand that that's the reason, the kind of border, the amount of animals, and the kind of activities between the two sides of the border.
Thank you, Mariano. Melanie?
Thanks, Giselle, and thanks, Mariano, for that excellent presentation. We have a question from Aldo Decker. You stated that vaccine production capacity should be maintained. Why should the vaccine for the bank be produced in South America? There are several international vaccine producers.
Yeah, that's right. But I understand that this should be also a matter of cost. As I was discussing with Diego, the creation of a regional bank also would allow to purchase many of material that is needed for this bank by the Pan American organization of health organization that probably will reduce the cost. And I understand that this is the same with the vaccines that are placed locally. I understand that this would eventually reduce the cost and also the speed of the response if you need to apply an emergency vaccination program.
Thank you. Giselle?
You are mute, I think. Okay.
Yeah, we have a question from Maria Gismondi. Hi, Mariano. Thanks for the talk. Given the recent outbreaks in Europe, do you think there is a need or international interest of developing alternative antiviral strategies, for example, complementary to vaccination, as the ones discussed in the last GFRA gap analysis?
Sure. One of the main issues is the lack of cross protection between strains within the serotype, even within the serotype, not only between serotypes. So any tool that may help to produce wider protection, even if it is for a short period of time, but in the beginning of the infection, will be useful. That is one of the main problems. Not having a universal tool also it's a problem for the vaccine banks, because they have to decide which strains they have and how to combine them if you want to get a broader protection. And that is actually something that we are researching in our group. the heterologous protection is, I think, a big issue, and all the strategies involving antivirals, of course, will be very welcome for this problem.
Thank you, Mariano. Melanie?
We have more of a comment from Eliana Smith-Art. She says, excellent presentation, and she introduces herself from Biogenesis Bago. I would add to the need of well-controlled vaccines that the vaccine should be controlled by independent bodies and should be public. Another factor is that the vaccination campaigns should have a vaccination coverage above 80%. Any comment to that?
No, I completely agree. In Argentina, we have a tradition of controlling the vaccines that are probably some cases better than for the humans. So the vaccine here is tightly controlled by SENASA. SENASA provides the strains to the vaccine companies, so they know what they are using for the vaccines. They control after that the potency of the vaccines, and the herd immunity is every year is monitored every year to be sure that this coverage is still high, and that's one of the issues that Diego was commenting me in Venezuela, because the coverage is still much below that 80%.
Thank you, Giselle.
Yeah, we have another question in the chat. What are the mandatory vaccine acceptance criteria the vaccine manufacturers in South America must follow to have their vaccines approved for use in national control programs?
Could you please repeat the first part of the question, Giselle, please?
Yeah, what are the mandatory vaccine acceptance criteria that the vaccine manufacturers in South America must follow?
Well, for new vaccines, for vaccines that needs to be registered, in Argentina, the companies, they have to perform a potency test, that is the immunization of groups of 16 animals that need to be kept with a single vaccination for 3 months before an in vivo challenge test with each one of the strains included in the vaccine. Also, at 60 days post-vaccination, serum samples are taken and they are evaluated by a liquid phase blocking ELISA that has been used for many years in Argentina, has a strong correlation with protection. So that also gives you a picture of a potency of a vaccine. But these are for new vaccines. If the vaccine is already registered, you can also only do the serological testing. But if it is new, you have to undergo an in vivo challenge test following the PGP protocol. That
Thank you,
the
Mariano.
PGP protocol involves that at least 12 animals of those vaccinated, of the 16 vaccinated, should show symptoms of the disease, so should be free of FMD.
Thank you. Melanie?
We have a question from Freddie Samantu. Thank you, Mariano, for the presentation. Do you think the approach of FMD-free with vaccination could be applied to Southern Africa with reference to the current FMD outbreak in South Africa or in the protection zone of Namibia? Thank you.
Well, these are rather uncharted territories for me, but I understand that the the epidemiological situation in South Africa probably is different, especially regarding also the wildlife. So I think it could be more difficult to implement these kind of strategies in those settings. Nevertheless, it is important that the capacities are being increased locally, and also that the organization in between between countries and within the countries, but between countries, like regional organizations, that they are strengthened somehow and get more power to decide things and get into agreements altogether. So I think that's a key. But I think in Africa is a pretty particular setting because of the wildlife, the buffaloes in this case, reservoirs that are basically the perfect host for the FMD, and that is an issue.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you, Giselle.
Our next question is from Nicola Savovsky. She says, what are the biggest challenges in enforcing quarantine and movement restrictions during an FMD outbreak? And what are the main challenges faced in implementing strict biosecurity measures at the farm level?
Well, in the case of Argentina, all the animals have their own ID. They can be tracked, all the movements. Of course, when an outbreak happens, it's a disaster because everything is halted, and including obviously not only the export but the internal movements. In the 2002 outbreaks in Argentina, it was estimated like $1.7 billion of economic losses only due to the close of the export markets. So at least in the case of Argentina, it's possible to track all the movements. And also another thing that is particular in Argentina is that the farms many of them are quite big, and they have resources for biosafety measures, and it's not the same like in other regions where the small holders, the farmers, they have just few animals and they are harder to track, harder to control. And Argentina, in that respect, has a beneficial setting because of the size of the farms and the production system. So the way to do that is to keep tracking all the animals and keep tracking all the movements. I have witnessed that every time that we wanted to bring animals from Patagonia to Buenos Aires to perform experiments with animals without vaccination. And it is really a lot of paperwork, and there's a tight control on that. So that's the Argentinian experience.
Thank you, Mariano. Melanie?
A question from Anonymous. Do you know what are the hypotheses regarding the origin of the outbreak in Germany, considering that the variant appears to be related to a 2018 virus?
No, I know. I mean, the origin is still inconclusive. They know that the sequence is very similar to another virus that was submitted in 2024. But this was originally in Turkey, but actually it involves a larger region that includes many other countries. So it's difficult to pinpoint an exact point for the origin of it. And still, they don't know how this virus got there. But the similarity with that recent sequence may give you a hint, but still, it is very difficult to really to track this down.
Thank you. Giselle?
Yes, our next question comes from David Lazarus. He says, you opened with the recent emergence of FMD in Germany and Hungary. What do you think would have been the possible risk factors for this emergence after the long period of eradication?
Oh, that is a great question. I cannot answer that. That's really. I think this is something that again brings the attention to FMD and what FMD can do. This is an example that probably will provide information and improve the models that are being developed to predict this kind of reemergence. As I said, still the hypothesis is not really clear if it would be if you want. I mean, if you want to predict what would be the reason of a potential reemergence in an area, for example, in South America, many people said it probably would be something to an exotic strain, but still, this is a matter of discussion, and well, I think that these two sanitary events will provide information, and well, we hope they will be resolved pretty soon, but they will provide information.
Thank you, Mariano. Melanie?
Just going back to the question on the origin of the Germany strain, Laura Constance comments that Germany did give a talk on that, and it was said that it was most likely from contaminant animal products, but that intentional introduction. I think she meant international introduction couldn't be ruled out. So yeah, that was what Germany stated in their talk.
Yes, they rule out a lot of. I received a presentation from Michael, and they have ruled out a lot of possibilities, and these were the two still standing, but it's hard to really know what happened.
Thank you, Giselle.
All right, I think
we've come to the end of the.
Yes, we are reaching the end of the GFRA webinar. Again, Mariano, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you again for accepting the invitation to be our March GFRA webinar. Thank you so much. Melanie?
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
Yes. I echo what Giselle said. Thank you, Mariano. Really appreciate your contribution and also being a part of the GFRA Executive Committee member to have the time to present to us today. We really appreciate it, and to give us an idea of what's happening and what has happened in South America. Really is something that we endemic countries would love to achieve. So it's good to see all your challenges that you faced and your achievements as well. So really good to learn from. And thank you everyone also for attending this webinar. We really appreciate the participation, and look out for our webinar, which will be in April, and we will advertise that very soon. So I'm going to hand over to Tessa and she will close for us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much, and special thank you to Mariano, Giselle, and Melanie for your participation in the webinar. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and evening, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.